I just returned from my mission in Texas, and I was attending Brigham Young University, and I had been called to be a senior resident in Taylor Hall, which is part of the Helaman Hall group. And one day I was in my room, and a telephone call comes in, and it's from my cousin Susan. And Susan says, "Rod, our dorm wants to have you as our candidate for the most preferred man on BYU campus."
Now this was an annual thing that they had a most preferred man, and people could nominate somebody from their club or their dorm or whatever. So
Yeah.
I'll let you keep going.
They had to, there were about 50 opportunities that they could, different ones. Anyway, I says, "You got to be kidding." And she says, "No, we're not kidding at all. We want you to come and visit our dorm on Sunday evening and to tell us a little about yourself." And I says, "Okay, if you really want me to do that, I will do it." Anyway, that night came, and I took a friend with me because I was a little nervous standing in front of all these girls. And so I introduced myself, and I said, "My name is Rod Crockett, and I just returned from my mission, and I am a senior resident at Taylor Hall." As soon as I said that, she said,
"That's my last name."
"Ah." So there I look, and there's this beautiful, blue-eyed, blonde girl. And I says, "Wow, Miss Taylor, I'll remember that." So I went on and was talking about myself and different things. And after I got through, I said, "Are there any questions?" And this little blonde, blue-eyed girl raises her hand and says,
"Are you going with anyone?"
And I said, "Well, I date a lot, but no, I'm not going with anyone in particular." And so she smiled, and I smiled, and
I think that we should interject here that you said, "I dated 35 girls in 3 months after my mission."
I was on the dating scene, that's for sure. But I was looking for a wife. So anyway, that's how we met. And on the first night that I had opened that I wanted to date her, I called her, and she had a date. And so I had to wait. So it was good for her to have, "Hey, no, I've already got a date." So it was the following Sunday that I called, and she said, "Yes, I'll go," and we went to a fireside.
He took his dates to church or to a fireside because it was free to save money. If
Well,
it didn't work
in
out, then
most
he had
cases.
wasted money on somebody.
Yeah. So we went to the fireside, and it was a slideshow that was going on, and I was looking at Kathy instead of watching the slideshow, and I kept saying in my head, "Wow, this is great. What a..."
Yeah, but he kept looking at me and saying, "I can't believe it.
Yes, I did.
I can't believe it." And I'm like, what does he mean?
Yeah, and then
I'm 18
finally,
years old at the time.
yeah, I was a little embarrassed with that, but anyway, so after I took her on a few dates, and I say, "This is it. I want to marry her, and so what am I going to do? How am I going to make this work?" So,
We went home for Christmas.
yep, went home for Christmas. So when we came back, then 7 weeks after I had known her, I proposed to her.
He proposed during semester finals. I didn't do very well on my finals. I'm like, you don't do that when you're trying to do.
Anyway.
Anyway.
We went to, I took her out to dinner, and I was going to propose to her across the dinner table. And we went to, at the time, it was called the Heaps of Pizza, which is brick oven today. But it was full of kids, and I just chickened out. I couldn't just say that, and then I was fearful if she said no, because it was just 7 weeks. So I waited till after dinner was over. She could tell I was nervous. I said, "Okay, I'll do it out by the car." And we got by the car. It was cold, and she was freezing. And I said, "Yeah, this is not going to work." So we got her in the car, and we drove around, looked at the Christmas lights and different things that were on, and finally I pulled into her dorm's the big parking lot, And I says, do it now. And so I turned to Kathy, put my arm around her, and I says, Kathy. She said, yes.
You're making so dramatic.
Yeah. Will you marry me? And she said, yes. And so
Okay.
that all began. And,
This was the end of January in 1964.
and I didn't have a ring, and so a couple days later we went to a
Jewelry store.
jewelry shop and found her a ring. She wanted a solitaire ring on white gold, and so it was official. And so we said, well, when are we going to get married? And she said,
We didn't have any money. We both needed to work through the summer, so we chose September 1st. Well, I chose it because I figured when the calendar changes from August to September, we'll never forget that the first day of September is our anniversary.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. So we were engaged way too long, but we made it work, and
Yeah.
we visited each other.
it was almost 7 months that we were engaged, and
Yeah.
the last month of that engagement, we
just-
were 2 hours apart in
We
California,
just
our towns
stayed
were.
apart.
So we said, hey, let's wait till I'll meet you at the temple. I worked at a sugar factory, and I was my opportunity was filling big tanker trucks full of liquid sugar.
Yeah,
That was-
Spreckles sugar. Okay.
Spreckles, yeah.
And I was working, I wanted to be a nurse, and so I was working in a county hospital in Hollister as a nurse's aide, and it was with mostly senior citizens, just like a senior care facility.
Los Angeles Temple.
So he came on Sunday night, we drove down all Monday, got there Monday night, and got up Tuesday morning and went to the temple, and were married by President Benjamin Bowering.
Yeah, the president of the
Angeles.
temple, and in his discussion with us, he indicated, I think it was there, either that or I read it in President Monson's book, but he had married President Monson, he and his wife, and so
I didn't know that.
he gave us the same counsel that he gave President Monson. You never go to bed without kneeling together and praying
Having
to
prayers
Heavenly
together.
Father, and we alternate back and forth. One night she'd do it, one night I would do it, and then his comment was, and the one different counsel I give to you is, as soon as your prayers are over, you kiss each other, and that way you'll never go to bed with hard feelings. So,
We came back to BYU. We got married, and then we had a reception Friday night in my hometown and Saturday night in his hometown, and then Sunday we drove back. We were just young, dumb kids, and we didn't even have an apartment. We just drove and got here Monday morning and just started driving through Provo looking for rent signs, and got the newspaper, and finally in Monday evening we saw for rent on this old dumpy house in South Provo. Pulled up there, and the couple that lived next door came out and said, "Are you looking
well, they
for
were out on the porch, or she was,
Yeah.
I think.
Were you looking for a place to rent?" Yes, and they called the landlady, and we moved in that night by candlelight because there was no electricity, and got because the power was turned off in our apartment, and got up Tuesday morning, and I started school at Utah Trade Technical Institute, which is a precursor to Utah Valley Community College, which is now UVU, and I studied dental assisting there for a year. And then
Yep, and I went to work at,
you were in school.
yes, well, I went to school that started that day, but then I ended up finding work in Provo at a family shoe store called Pratt's Shoe Store. And I could walk from my apartment to work in the evenings, and it was a great experience. I remember one evening walking, and it was so cold, I looked up at the temperature gauge on the old drugstore, and it said -2 degrees. And so, anyway.
$1.25 an hour was the minimum wage. Yeah, and I worked briefly for Ed Pinniger, who has been like an area authority or something At
Guinness.
Pinniger, yeah, at Pinniger. And then I said I can't work for $1.25 an hour. So then I went to work at Deseret Towers as a hostess, and I cleaned tables, and I worked in vegetable prep and stuff like that just to make some money.
And I finally found a job at the Wilkinson Center Takeout Catering. And I did sandwiches for the vending machines and
Punch. You made a punch.
yeah,
Something.
made all kinds of punches for people.
3 years, and our first baby Doug was born 3 years and 9 months after. We tried. We actually had adoption papers in, and then I got pregnant.
Yeah, we didn't know if she was going to be
But
able to have kids.
we did 2 years. Then he finished school, and we went to California for 7 months, and he worked in a department store there. And I did like, what is it? The inventory at the end of the year. But we were there for just 7 months, and then we went back to BYU, and he went back to school and studied education.